Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ann Ortelee's Weekly Weather. We're back. I'm back. Woohoo! This is the weekly weather for April 13th, 2025. Neptune is at 0 Aries, and the eclipses have officially left. We are off and running on to a new chapter, a new beginning, a new forward motion. Yay, rah. Off we go. So welcome back to the weekly weather. And we are recording this and going forward. So questions, people kept saying, I miss the weekly weather. I miss the weekly weather. Why was the weekly weather gone for so long? We always ask those questions. Well, starting with the spring eclipse last year, it set off my cardinal T-square. So my sister was diagnosed with dementia a while back and she was put on hospice. My brother was in a car accident, totaled his car, required spinal surgery, and is still rehabbing to get out of his wheelchair. My cousin's appendix ruptured on the operating table, and she was in the hospital for 10 days with double infections. My uncle died of COVID in December, so my aunt, his wife, had a heart attack with 15% of her heart remaining the day he was intubated for COVID. And she moved to Florida to be near me once she was cleared medically, which was in that spring time frame. She felt we packed up her house and sent her in a new place and assisted living in May down here in Florida after she finished all her rehab and stuff with the heart attack. And she fell 10 days after moving into the assisted living place, fractured her hip in 2 places, bedridden. She never recovered despite rehab. So she died mid-August. And then we broke up her assisted living apartment, distributing her possessions. So I was here in Florida all summer going to visit her at the nursing home, at the rehab place, nursing home that she was at. And I remember thinking, gee, I had, that was Saturn on my sun, part 2. Thought, gee, Saturn's not off my sun until February. What's going to happen next? Well, I had 4 close friends who died suddenly and 3 close friends who had major health aspects, which I was, my Virgo Pisces was off doing that. And then, of course, I fell and broke my right hip during the fall eclipse that we just, it's now 6 months since I broke my leg. I broke it in multiple places. And so I spent 91 days in rehab in a rehabilitation facility until January 9th. So I've been busy. And with the weekly weather, it really requires concentration and prep, and I prepare it and I think about it, and you can see that it was a little wild and crazy. But now that the eclipses are gone, we're ready to go back. All the planets are moving forward. Venus is forward, Mercury is forward, everybody's moving forward, except for Juno, who's moving backwards in Sag on my midheaven. So our partnership with the weekly weather gets to continue. We are going to have some new moon webinars coming up. The next one will be on the 21st of the new moon will be on the 21st. We'll have a webinar on the 18th. Okay, the other thing that happened this year is 5 planets and nodes change signs, which is very unusual. Usually just Jupiter changes signs every year. And the other planets, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, don't. They are hanging out and do their thing. And but this time we have 5 of them shifting, and they're shifting from earth and water into fire and air, which is why it's been so batshit wild out there in the world. So we have Pluto go into Aquarius. The last time he was there was in April of 77. He's there now for 20 years until, as of November 19th, until January of 2044. Neptune went into Aries. He was last there on April of 1861, which was the Civil War. He enters Aries on March 30th, so he's in Aries now, and he's there until 2039. Uranus goes into Gemini, last there in August of 41. He's going to go into Gemini in July of this year, July 7th, and he will be there until 2033. It'll be the 3rd Uranus return of the United States. The first one, the first one was the Declaration of Independence. The second one was the Civil War. And the third one, of course, was World War II. You can see August of 41. So we have now another one. Saturn into Aries, the last time he was there was April of 96. And he goes in there May of this year, May 24th, and Jupiter goes into Cancer on June. The last time he was there was June of 2013, 12 years ago. And then the nodes reinitiated at 0 Aries on January 11th, And the last time they were there was 19 years ago. So with 5 outer planets and the node of fate changing signs, we have a lot of activity. Now, I did a presentation on this called Wowza, which is available for sale on my website if you want to buy it, where I talked about the changes and what we can anticipate, but you've already been experiencing it. You're seeing the earth and water energy that we've lived with since 208. And for the last 14 years, Neptune's been in water for 14 years to 11. We really are seeing the earth and water let go and change. The foundation beneath us is dissolving, and we are launching into fire and air, where our vision, our ideas, our focus, our importance are so important because they're going to shape where we go, our belief systems. And in the United States chart, which we'll start adding in now that we're back, the weekly weather is back, I'm going to start doing a little political one for the people that don't like the politics in this and just want the weekly weather. I'm going to start doing the political one too. Just a little bitty one, but kind of talking about where the planets are changing in our chart and kind of what we can anticipate. But basically, the Saturn Neptune in Aries, which is there all year through next February, is at the foundation of our being, foundation of our chart, foundation of the Declaration of Independence. So we're getting a new vision for our world, a new vision for our life, a new vision of who we are. And so we're all getting it in our 0 Aries point. And the Pluto, the Neptune, the Uranus, the Saturn in Aries, and the node in Aries, they are forming what is called a minor trine. Pluto is trine to Uranus in Gemini. And then the Saturn, Neptune both receive the sextile from the 2 air planets. So a minor trine around the vision of where we're heading. Unfortunately, Saturn does not like being in Aries. He's in his detriment. It's not a great place for him. So we are seeing a lot of things that we are going, wow, that structure, Saturn, is literally on fire. Neptune in fire. And of course, as we watched California burn, January 4th to the 7th, when LA was on fire, remember everything in California comes east. So that means the whole United States is going to be on fire. Hopefully not physically, but we are emotionally on fire. And so it's important to talk about how to work with that energy, which we'll be doing in our upcoming weekly weathers. So with the 3 planets at 0 Aries at the bottom of the US chart of the Declaration of Independence, which is our vision for what our country is. And then we had the vision, and then we fought the Revolutionary War, and then we formed the Constitution. So there's a couple charts that we're going to be looking at going down the road. Again, that'll be in the political piece. But this is the weekly weather. So it's definitely looking at the vision of where we're going and what we're doing. And Saturn and Neptune are dancing in Aries and Pisces this year. Like, here's the vision. No, that's not the vision. Here's the vision. No, that's not the vision. Like, it's kind of like editing a film, what our vision is, what our ideas are. And they're going to meet up at 046 Aries on February 20th next year. So we have a whole year of this wild and crazy kind of stuff. We'll get used to it. You know, eventually we do get used to chaos, but it also understanding we're having the Uranus return for our country when we broke away from England. And we're saying, you know, what is the structure we want to live with and work with going forward? It's a big deal. So here we are. This is the first time I did the podcast, so I thought I would show you the history of it. This was the first astrology blog talk radio I did back in 2006, 2009. And that's the energy for it. So you remember this month, we just had the new moon up here at 9 Aries, and we also had a Sun-Venus cazimi on March 23rd. So we're back. And so I thought that was pretty positive for us saying, yeah, we're ready to roll. We're ready for new direction, new ideas, new ways of thinking about things. And of course, Mercury was at 0 Aries. So that little configuration is active. Now it is activated. The node, you know, the north node is here. I mean, I knew I was always coming back, but I wasn't ready because of all this stuff, you know, the healing and, you know, just the journey of, you know, your friend, you know, Saturn opposite my sun. I had a lot of work to do. And this is a lot of work. So I was, not that I don't love this work, but it was kind of like, oh, put it in the pile. But you can see the nice Cancer rising, which is why people like it and find it helpful. And then there's that little Saturn at 16 of Virgo. And so when Saturn was at 16 this year, it was opposite that Saturn, kind of cutting off our communication. This is you guys going, where's the weekly weather? And you can see I was having my Saturn transit. So now we're back. We now see that Saturn is here. He's past the Uranus. The weekly weather is back and it's not going away again. I mean, it will eventually when I die, but right now we're back and I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. We're also in a pace of, okay, where's our direction? What's important for us? Where do we want to go? And then, of course, the relaunch of it here is with the sun on the progressed sun is on a world point, saying, okay, it's back, and the progressed sun is coming to square the ascendant. So there's a lot of nice opportunity and moving forward. And of course, we're having a progressed moon. Our progressed moon's in Scorpio, and the moon today is in Scorpio. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the heavens. We have the full moon up there that was on Saturday. And this is a big one because this marked the end of the eclipse season. Eclipse seasons happen when the nodes of fate and the sun are within 15 degrees of each other. So the sun 15, you can see now it's 23 and 3, so it's out of 15. It's 26 degrees away. This is the end of the eclipses. We had the new moon eclipse at 9 Aries, which echoes this our little sun, moon, Venus here. And we also had Venus retrograde. So now as Venus goes direct, because she's turning direct there, you see how she's stopped, she's turning direct in the new moon chart, the full moon chart that we had for Saturday. So Venus is turning direct. We also have a T-square, Mars squaring the sun, Jupiter, and me saying, okay, we're going to do a couple of things. Mars is back on the ascendant of the chart for the initial time I started doing these podcasts, these recordings. So we now see forward go. Neptune now in 0 Aries, really talking to us, forming that sextile with Pluto. And now we have shifted from earth and water into fire and air. So we have to be inspired. We have to think. We have to focus. We have to pay attention to where we're going. Mercury still is a little bit feisty because he's hanging out in Pisces. So he's imaginal. He's dreaming. Sometimes he can be really overwhelmed by this energy, but he is in mutual reception with the Jupiter in Gemini. And so Mercury loves to be in Gemini and Jupiter loves to be in Pisces. So that can be a nice energy with Jupiter, Saturn, and imagining Jupiter here next to Saturn, the node in Venus. So it's kind of an initiation, a relaunch, a new direction, a forward motion, kind of full steam ahead. We do have Pluto down here at the bottom of the chart for the new moon cast for Washington. And of course, that was our wild and crazy ride last week with the tariffs. We had Venus go over Saturn on Sunday and Mercury go direct last week. And then we had the wild week. And now Venus is going direct, going to go over Saturn again over the next couple of days. So we're going to watch this as a forward motion. Notice all the planets are direct. So this means that the sky is going to move very quickly. The two planets that are not direct are Vesta, the home and hearth, like where are we living and what are we nesting in, and also doing some psychological work on your childhood of origin and what happened in your childhood. And also our partnerships are revising because we're changing. When we change, when you change, the partnerships changes. But you can see there's a nice grand trine from the Vesta to the Neptune, to this pile of planets in Pisces, and then up here to the Mars in Cancer. The Mars in Cancer also answers to that lovely moon. It's a full moon, and the moon is in Libra, which answers to her Venus in her exaltation, cuddled up next to Saturn. So we're making commitments. This is a commitment energy. Pregnancies, kitten adoptions, committing to the weekly weather again. We're moving forward in terms of our direction, our calling, and our purpose. Next up, Saturn's Venus stations direct. That happened on Saturday too. And this is the time of her station. It's a little bit after the full moon. Not much, but just a couple minutes. But it's a component of it. And remember, the moon and Venus are in an adjusting energy. They're asking each other to adjust, but they're also moon rules Venus, or Venus rules the moon. And Venus is over here with Saturn saying it's time to focus on our creativity. It's time to focus on what we're really here to do. And then, of course, Venus is in a trine to Mars. The Mars is past the square to the moon, right? Moon's going to catch up to Mars squared later in this week. But we have this energy of, okay, push, push, push. With the T square and a grand trine in fire and water, it's very much a visionary time. And we are forming a kite here where Pluto is going to be the apex of the kite once Mars gets into Leo and comes to oppose Pluto. So that's again next week, but it gets us, we're getting moving, right? And kind of forming new adventures, new approaches, new directions in life. Next, Mercury's going to go into Aries. Now, remember, he was retrograde for 21 days in Pisces, kind of rolling around, feeling his feelings. And that's why it was so freaking emotional. And everybody was running emotional and really feeling things and just, just this waves of feeling kind of flying all over the place. Now that Mercury has gone into Aries, he's now meeting up with Neptune. And he is very much about the word. I am the word. I am. I mean, Aries is an I am sign. So I really want you over this next couple of days to think I am what I want. Venus is direct, meeting Saturn. I am going to commit to this. Venus, Saturn, exalted, Venus is exalted. So whatever you're committing to really can show up. But also there's an I am energy that encourages us to take action and move forward with that Mercury on the Neptune, also trining the Jupiter in Cancer and trining the Vesta in Scorpio and the moon in Sag. So it's a grand trine in fire and water. And remember, a lot of times you can talk about things. You say, oh, I think I'm going to write a book, or I think I'm going to whatever. But you have to get the emotion behind it to actually have it launch. And so with Mercury into Aries, full steam ahead, meeting up with Aries after meeting with Venus and Saturn. He's carrying the information from Venus and Saturn to Neptune and saying, hey, they're not here yet, but they have a vision of where they'd like to go. Let's go get it. Now, Mercury in Aries is sharp-tongued. So for the next 21 days, we're going to find Mercury's pretty feisty in terms of his communication skills. He's going to be quite the little sharp-mouthed fellow. But he says what's true, and he's answering to the Mars in Cancer. So he is, or he rules the Mars in Cancer, right? So as opposed to answers to. So Mars in Cancer reports to the moon, but Mars goes and looks for what's going on, because Mercury in Aries is in Mars's, he's going to go to the moon. He's going to go to Mars and Cancer. Let me slow down. I'm going too fast. Mercury is in Aries. He's going to go look to Mars to see what Mars thinks, because Mars is his boss. And Mars is going to change every 2.5 days as the moon changes, because Mars is in Cancer. Now, it's getting out of Cancer pretty quick, but for the last little bits. And when this Mercury goes into Aries, which is going to be on Wednesday, we see there's a nice big old grand trine in fire and water, very emotional, very forward speaking, very intense. And so we're going to watch that energy really launch. And you can see there's a couple fingers of God in there. So you really want to pay attention to the news that comes out Tuesday and Wednesday this week, because it's going to be important to your future. And because the moon is out of bounds in Sag, answering to the Jupiter in Gemini, there's a lot of energy now. Mercury's not in mutual reception anymore with that Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter in Gemini is very fierce because he's now answering to Mercury in Aries. So it's a feisty sky, very feisty sky midweek. And the planet, the moon phases really reflect it too. Next up, we have Mercury and Neptune meeting. Now, this is important because this happens every year. Mercury and Neptune meet up at once a year, sometimes more if it happens during the retrograde. But Neptune's in a new sign. He has not been in Aries for 165 years. He has not. The last time he was there was the Civil War when he went into Aries. Long time. And so Mercury's meeting him right after Neptune got into Aries. So Neptune's like out of the water. He was rolling around in Pisces for the last 14 years, which he liked. But now he's on fire. Now he's impassioned. Now he's really going to be speaking. And so the Mercury and Neptune is fiery speech and fiery communications and fiery concepts about how we're going to do things. And you can see there's a nice big old grand trine in water, which contributes emotion to the story. But the Mercury is answering, when he meets up with Neptune, he's going to be the I am. I have a vision, and it is this. So you want to take some time this week to sit down with yourself on this full moon energy, going towards a release, going towards a new moon release in a couple of weeks. On the 18th is the 21st is the new moon. We'll have a new moon webinar on the 18th. But as we go towards that new moon, there's a releasing energy that wants to happen, where you're going to be asked, what are you carrying with you? What do you want to release? So when I look at this, I get the goddess Mot. And if you know mythology, Egyptian mythology, the goddess Mot would wait when you died, and she would come, you would go to her and you would give her your heart, and she would weigh your heart, and it had to be light as a feather. And if it was light as a feather, you could proceed. If it wasn't light as a feather, you had to go back and do it over again. So I think of the Mercury Neptune, the initiating energy is that energy of the heart, and the Venus Saturn are joined. The energy of the heart is light as a feather. How do you make your heart as light as a feather to be able to proceed? These are pretty scary times, or people are worried about jobs, worried about income, worried about whatever. But if we're living in the moment, in this moment, do you have food? In this moment, do you have, how are you doing? And so that Mercury Neptune really wants you to focus on the immediacy of the moment, the immediacy of the I am. And then also with the declarative statement, we know that when we back up to the universe and we go, I give you my commitment, the universe kind of comes in and has our back. So we're going to get out of the dwaddles, which is what we've been going through. A little dwaddle here, a little dwaddle there. If you remember that girl, if you're old enough, mingle here, mingle there, mingle everywhere. We were all over the place. Mercury is not all over the place. He is a scalpel. He's cutting. He's sharp. He's clear. He's like got a vision and he's moving on it. So you want to kind of honor that shift when it happens on Thursday, Jupiter's day, because Jupiter answers to Mercury. And so he's going to say, what are you committing to? Why do you believe that? What is your I am? I am, and then whatever the fill in the blank is, that's the important part. Next up, Mars goes into Leo. Now we have a real trine in fire because the Mars is in Leo, trining the Mercury and the Neptune. And so the fire feeds on itself. Again, Mars in Leo is an impassioned Mars, but it's going to look to your natal sun to say, hey, what do you want to do? And your sun is going to say, I figured out what I want to do. I am the Mercury Neptune. I want to do this. And the Mars in Leo is going to go forward. Now he has a few more degrees till he leaves his shadow. So this is stuff you were maybe thinking of in November, December timeframe when Mars entered into Leo and stationed to go retrograde, because he's been in, Cancer Leo since October. I mean, it's been a long run. And out of bounds, I might add. But now that he's in Leo and he's ready to roll, we're going to be really watching that Mars kind of pump up the energy. And he and the sun are in mutual reception. Mars loves to be in Aries and the sun loves to be in Leo. So this is a very impassioned energy. It's got a little bit of a stressful component to it, not bad, because part of it is when we say I am, we have then made that commitment and said, I am ready to go. I am. Then we go forward. And so this is Friday. Now the weekend is hopping for a couple of reasons. We have the sun going into Taurus, which is very directional, very focused, and it is answering to Venus in Pisces. So we know we're going to have a bunch of protests this weekend. It is, of course, Easter weekend. It is Passover. There's a lot of energy in the sky, and we are also going to have the sun come to square Mars. Right? So which is taking action, which the sun does. He takes action and he says, this is what I'm doing. But he's answering to the Venus in Pisces next to Saturn saying, how do you believe, why do you believe this? What do you believe it for? What's the point of it? What, like nudgy questions, like little kids when they go, why? Well, why? Well, why? And then you finally go, just because. You may find yourself with your own inner voice or with other people going just because, or, my mother periodically would go, because I said so. And that's the energy today. And of course, this weekend is Saturday is huge. It's an enormous day. Lots and lots going on and lots of stressful energy, but good energy too, because now the sun is going into Taurus, where it gets immeasurably stubborn and fixed, but it's also answering to the Venus, Saturn, and Pisces, answering to Venus, who's next to Saturn and Pisces, and encouraging us to step forward and say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Additionally, Mars is trining Neptune. First, he trined Mercury, but now he's moved into trine Neptune. And so there's a nice, juicy energy there about taking action on what you believe to get what you want. And so this is an important energy. And this is also on Saturday. As I mentioned, Saturday is kind of a juicy day. And we also have Mars approaching the opposition to Pluto. Now, when he was opposite Pluto in October, that's when there were the hurricanes in Florida, and I fell and broke my leg in a bunch of places and then was in rehab for 3 months. So I am really looking forward to that Mars going past Pluto, but it is a violent aspect. It's got an element of violence. And we also see the Sun in Taurus squaring the Mars, squaring the Pluto. So it's a very intense T-square, but it's a T-square of words and communication with the Mercury and the Neptune in Aries. And it's also taking action on what we believe. Neptune is, I believe this. And Mars says, I'm going to take action on it after consultation with you. But it also does take on, because of the square to the Sun in Taurus, it does take on the T-squares encourage us to change things. And they shoot the energy over into the Scorpio house, because the exit point for this T-square, Mars opposite Pluto, Sun in Taurus, shoots into Scorpio, encouraging us to take positive action to get things accomplished. Once it does that shooting in, we have a whole energy of expansion and movement. And we also see the node of fate coming to Saturn over the next couple days. And we also see Venus coming to the node of fate. So these are very fated times, F-A-T-E-D. The choices you make now are important. And as we're looking at that, that energy of, okay, this is where we're headed, there's a lot of opportunity for new direction. Notice the midheaven in this chart is 22 Cancer, which is the rising sign for me coming back, starting Blog Talk Radio, which was the initiation before the YouTube stuff. The YouTube came because of Amanda and Astrology Hub. But this is that whole energy of, okay, how do we get that out in the world? And how do we communicate where we're headed and what we're doing? So there's a nice, juicy energy here that wants us to take action. And again, as I mentioned, Saturday's really a loaded day. Next up on Sunday, we have Venus sextile Uranus. This is a very self-satisfied aspect, meaning Venus and Uranus. Venus is in a closing sextile to Uranus. She's happy, she's direct. She's hanging out with Saturn. Literally, Saturn and Uranus are sextile to each other too, although that perfects in a little bit. Actually, we already had it. It was a week ago. But Uranus Saturn is, what are the structures and how are we going to move forward and modify and change and shift them? And now with Venus here talking to the Uranus, they're both going to be saying, okay, where do we go? Uranus answers to Saturn, who's in Pisces. So we do see a lot of dissolving of things. But we also recognize that part of that Venus sextiling Uranus softens it up a little, even if it can be a bit hard because she's hanging out with Saturn. But it's also, again, we still have all that I am energy with the Mercury and the Mars and the Neptune that are like, no, I'm not putting up with that. I want to do this. I am. And I really encourage you to listen to your inner I ams and understand where they come from. These are very deep psychological times for people. When I'm talking to my clients, many of them are rolling around in their earlier lives, their earlier experiences, earlier relationships, remembering, working on, processing. We are shedding over the next, as I mentioned, those 5 planets and the node of fate, changing signs. We are shedding our old life, similar to a little hermit crab sheds its carapace, takes off. The lobsters, they shed their skin, they get all soft and gooey, and then they grow a new skin. The snake sheds its skin and goes through a transformation because it has to grow, right? So we're in this space of shedding skin and releasing the old and saying, that's finished. I can't go back anymore. I don't really want to go back. I want to go forward. And so I'm encouraging myself to go forward and to take action in going that way. And with the Sun square Mars, Pluto, P-square, is very much encouraging. Well, what would you like to go forward towards? And there are limitations because the Venus and Saturn are there. Venus is next to Saturn. But there's also an element of freedom because of the sextile to Uranus. So don't be afraid to say what you want and say, this would be helpful for me, or I would like this. I envision this. I see this. These energies are very, very powerful. And we are moving rapidly through time. We also have Mercury sextiling Pluto. Again, very important. Mercury sextiling Pluto encourages us to pull together people that we know and we love, or pull together people that we're part of a triangle with, or people that have helped us create before. And notice the moon is hanging out right there. And again, encouraging, practical encouragement, because the moon is in a sextile to the Pisces planets, the Venus and Saturn. It is in a trine to the south node of fate, and it is in a trine to Uranus, the planet of change and transformation. So it's encouraging us to trust the process, to, if you've ever seen that movie where they walk, I'm blanking on the name of it, where they walk and the stones appear, but they have to trust that they have to walk and then the stone will appear. It's the, if you build it, they will come. It's trusting that energy within you. And that's what this week is about. Trusting the I am energy, trusting the I want to build things and move forward. We also have the Sun square Mars on Sunday. And that can be a little violent, unfortunately, but it also is seeing things that we need to see. It's a closing square. So the sun goes, I really need you to notice this. And again, we're still working with that Venus so close to Saturn. She's moving very slowly, but she's kind of riding with him. They're kind of companions in this. So understanding, especially if you have these aspects in your chart, if you have a Venus-Saturn conjunction like I do, if you have a Sun-Pluto square like one of my friends does, who's working on a lot of things with her family, understanding that we're really, really working these energies on deep levels. And so they're super important for us to pay attention to. And with the Sun square Mars, again, it's an I am moment because Mercury and Neptune are trining that Mars. And the moon is opposite it in Aquarius now, which goes, I don't know that this is where I want to be. I think I maybe want to change. Again, squares are action oriented. They're not always hard, but they encourage us to take action. Okay, let me get my, oops, where did I hit the button here? There we go. Okay, let me get my moon calendars for the moons for the day. Always good when all the bells ring. Okay, so this week, the moon is in Scorpio on Sunday, Palm Sunday and Monday today, and then it goes void on the 15th with a lovely trine to Mercury tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Then it enters Sagittarius at 10:37 p.m., goes void at 10:24, enters Sag at 10:37. Sag moon, the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, going void 10:12 a.m. on Good Friday. The moon is void, it goes void at 7:38 on Good Friday, enters Capricorn on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, goes void Sunday afternoon at 1:21 p.m. and enters into Aquarius at 7:22 p.m. The weekend is very busy. Friday is very busy. Friday is pretty stressed energetically. Tuesday is very, very stressed energetically. That moon in Scorpio is making aspects to all those Pisces planets, but it also is really digging in. It's digging in and it's saying, this is where I'm going. This is what I want. So it's a dig in day on Tuesday, fertile on Sunday and Monday, the 13th and 14th. And then when we get to the end of the week, we of course get into the Easter holidays, but and the Greek Orthodox Easter and Passover. So we're working with on Sunday a lot of energy, because then all the Pisces planets are working very actively and in positive energy. And if you remember looking at all the things that happened over the weekend with the aspects, they're very big. And last but not least, So the emotions are very strong this week, but really the planets are asking you to do the I am. Last but not least, I'm offering an Alaskan astrology cruise. We're going to depart from Seattle on June 22nd of this year, 70 days or so from now, and return on the 29th. We're going to be at sea, go to Juneau, Skagway, cruise Glacier Bay, Ketchikan, and then if you want to go to Canada, bring your passport if you're American. And then we return to Seattle on Sunday. Information on my website, and also information on rovingsouls.com to the left there, Anne's Cruise. A woman named Angelina is running it for me. She's helping me organize it and coordinate it. So she will answer your questions if you go to Roving Souls, or if you write a letter, her contact information is on it. It's on my website. And what you get with this is 10 hours of astrology class with me and other astrologers. We're going to have a new moon ceremony, welcoming Jupiter into his exaltation, stargazing with Jeff Gronlund, Angelina's husband, who teaches for Kepler and for OPA, group dinners where we can hang out and talk, cocktail hours, free Wi-Fi. You also get 2 meals in fancy places on the cruise if you don't want to eat with us, and also optional tours with the cruise, offered by the cruise when we're in port. And so this is the cruise taking off. Notice the lovely Venus and Taurus, Uranus and Moon conjunction. It's got a nice finger of God there with the Mars at the top. Literally the day we leave, there's a huge soccer match, huge soccer thing in Seattle. So it's going. And then this is the new moon is going to be when we're in Skagway, Alaska. So we will have a nice new moon ceremony. Notice Jupiter there with the sun and the moon in joining us to be creative and figure out what we want to create in our life and where we want to go forward. So hopefully you can join me. We still have Patreon out there, and that is the weekly weather. We're back. More information on my website if you want to check into the cruise. I had some cancellations due to the financial markets kind of falling apart. So I'd like to be able to refund the people their money. So I'm opening up the cruise for some last minute signups, and hopefully you'll join us in the meantime. Happy weekly weather. We're back. We're moving forward. It's a whole new direction in terms of where we're headed and what we're doing. And I wish you a great day. Let me stop the recording.